Episode 3, Toto Riina. In the dark heart of Sicily, one man ruled with such fear that even the bravest whispered his name, Toto Riina, the boss of bosses. His rise was soaked in blood, his reign unmatched in brutality. This is not just a story, it's a warning from history. Welcome back to Mob Truth, where every episode takes you deeper into the world of the real mafia. Hit subscribe and join the family. Every new soldier makes us stronger. Now, let's enter the world of Toto Riina. Corleone, Sicily, a small town with narrow streets, stone houses, and a history steeped in blood. In 1930, Salvatore Toto Riina was born into poverty, in a world where respect was earned with a gun, not words. His father was a farmer, but in Sicily, farming alone didn't keep food on the table. Violence was a second trade, and young Toto was already learning the rules. By the time he was a teenager, Riina had joined forces with Luciano Liggio, a ruthless upstart who had his own plans for Corleone. Together they would rise, replacing the old guard with something far deadlier. The Corleonesi, a clan that would terrorize Sicily for decades. But Riina wasn't just another soldier. He was patient, calculating, and when the time came, merciless. His enemies didn't just disappear. They were erased from history, and soon the entire island would know why they called him La Belva, the Beast. The 1950s in Sicily were changing fast. The old families like the Palermos and the Grecos had money and tradition, but Riina and Liggio brought something new, fear without limits. Their message was clear: obey or vanish. In 1958, Luciano Liggio made his move, ordering the murder of Michele Navarra, the respected but aging boss of Corleone. The hit was swift, brutal, and it changed the balance of power overnight. Navarra's loyalists scattered, and the young Corleonesi took control. Riina, still in his 20s, had already proven himself as Liggio's most trusted killer. But loyalty in the mafia is like smoke. It shifts, it fades. Riina watched, waited, and learned. And when Liggio's time came, Riina would be ready to take everything for himself. Push into the 1960s, setting up bigger war. By the early 1960s, Sicily was booming with heroin money, and the mafia's reach stretched far beyond the island. Palermo became the stage for the first mafia war, a bloody conflict over control of the drug trade. Riina's role? Silent but deadly. He eliminated rivals in the shadows, his name whispered with dread from Palermo to Rome. But the war was only the beginning. What came next would turn Riina from a feared hitman into the most powerful and most hunted man in all of Italy. The 1970s were Riina's decade. With Liggio arrested in '74, Riina stepped out of the shadows and took command of the Corleonesi. His leadership was unlike anything Sicily had seen, calculated, ruthless, and paranoid to the core. He rebuilt the mafia from the inside, replacing old bosses with loyal killers from Corleone. Anyone who refused to bend the knee simply disappeared. In the countryside, the Corleonesi ruled with fear. In the cities, they moved like ghosts, controlling rackets, contracts, and the flow of heroin into the United States. But Riina wasn't satisfied with power in the shadows. He wanted absolute control over the Sicilian Mafia Commission. That meant one thing: the bloodiest war in Cosa Nostra's history was about to begin. By the late 1980s, Riina was untouchable, or so he thought. Judge Giovanni Falcone and Judge Paolo Borsellino, working from a fortified bunker in Palermo, were building the Maxi trial, the biggest mafia prosecution in history. The evidence was devastating. Turncoats like Tommaso Buscetta broke the code of silence and revealed the inner workings of Cosa Nostra. Riina was named as the hidden hand behind countless murders. But Riina didn't back down. He declared war on the state. In 1992, a massive bomb on the highway near Capaci killed Falcone, his wife, and 3 bodyguards. 2 months later, Borsellino was blown apart outside his mother's home. The attacks shocked Italy, sparking outrage from Rome to New York. For the first time, Riina wasn't just the mafia's most feared boss, he was the nation's most wanted fugitive. On January 15, 1993, after 23 years on the run, Riina's luck finally broke. Acting on a tip from an informant, the Carabinieri surrounded him in Palermo. There was no gunfight, no chase. The boss who had ordered hundreds of murders was pulled from his car without a shot fired. In court, Riina stayed defiant. He smirked, taunted prosecutors, and denied everything, even as witnesses and evidence piled up. His convictions stacked like bodies. Multiple life sentences, no chance of freedom. But even behind bars, Riina's reach was deadly. Messages smuggled out through loyal soldiers kept the mafia's engine running, and rivals still feared his name. In 2017, at the age of 87, Toto Riina died in prison, still officially the head of the Corleone, still known as the Beast. His reign left Sicily scarred, its streets forever marked by the blood of his enemies. With Luciano Liggio arrested in 1974, Toto Riina stepped fully into the light, though his power still moved in the shadows. From Corleone, he began reshaping Cosa Nostra in his own image. Loyal soldiers from the countryside replacing the old Palermo bosses, every move planned with military precision. Those who refused to join him vanished without a trace. Contracts, construction deals, heroin shipments, all flowed through the Corleonesi. And in Riina's mind, it still wasn't enough. To rule Sicily, he would have to rule the mafia's governing body, the Commission. And to do that, he was willing to start a war no one had ever seen before. The Second Mafia War erupted in the early 1980s. Riina unleashed a campaign of total annihilation. Car bombs in Palermo's crowded streets, daylight shootings in front of cafes, entire families targeted. No one was untouchable. Stefano Bontade, Salvatore in Cirillo, bosses who once ruled Palermo, were cut down. Their allies fled to America, carrying tales of Riina's cold-blooded efficiency. In less than 3 years, over 1,000 people were murdered. By the end, the Corleonesi dominated the Sicilian Mafia Commission. Riina controlled the drug trade, the contracts, and the fear that gripped every town from Corleone to Palermo. By the late 1980s, Riina's grip on Sicily was absolute. But in Palermo's anti-mafia bunker, 2 men were quietly building a case that could bring him down: Judge Giovanni Falcone and Judge Paolo Borsellino. The Maxi trial exposed Cosa Nostra like never before. Turncoats such as Tommaso Buscetta revealed the structure, the murders, and the orders that led back to Riina. The verdicts were crushing, hundreds of convictions, and Riina named as the mastermind. Instead of retreating, Riina declared war on the state. In 1992, a massive bomb on the highway near Capaci killed Falcone, his wife, and 3 bodyguards. Just weeks later, Borsellino was blown apart outside his mother's home. The attacks stunned Italy and ignited public fury. Riina had made himself the most wanted man in the country. On January 15, 1993, after more than 2 decades on the run, Riina's reign finally cracked. Acting on a tip, the Carabinieri intercepted his car in Palermo. There was no shootout, no chase. The boss who had ordered massacres across Sicily was pulled from the driver's seat without a fight. In court, Riina stayed defiant, smirking at prosecutors and denying every charge. But the evidence was overwhelming. Life sentence after life sentence piled up, each one locking him deeper into the prison system. Even behind bars, his influence lingered. Orders filtered out through loyal men on the outside, and fear of his name still hung over the island. In prison, Riina never showed regret. Even as illness set in, he refused to cooperate with the state, keeping the code of silence to his last breath. From his cell, messages slipped out through visitors and lawyers, keeping his influence alive. By the mid-2010s, his health was failing. Still, the government kept him under the highest security, fearing even a dying Riina could command violence. On November 17, 2017, the man known as the Beast died at age 87 in a hospital prison ward. His funeral was small, watched closely by police. But in Sicily, his shadow still loomed, a reminder of the years when fear itself had a name: Toto Riina. Riina's death didn't end the Corleonese's grip, but it shattered their fearsome image. Inside the mafia, power shifted. Matteo Messina Denaro, a younger boss from Castelvetrano, became the most wanted man in Italy. Nicknamed Diabolic, he combined the old brutality with modern secrecy, avoiding phones, emails, and anything traceable. Messina Denaro kept the heroin pipelines alive, invested in construction and wind farms, and maintained the code of silence. But he ruled from the shadows. No public appearances, no photographs for decades. In many ways, he was the opposite of Riina's loud violence, preferring precision strikes over all-out war. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued dismantling the old networks. Informants once loyal to Riina now testified against the remaining bosses. Raids across Sicily and mainland Italy weakened the commission's influence. Yet the legend of the Corleonesi still hung over the island, a warning that absolute power in the mafia always comes with a cost. By the 2000s, the mafia's old structure was breaking apart. The days of open street wars were over, replaced by quiet deals, hidden investments, and invisible bosses. But the shadow of Riina's reign still shaped everything. Younger members studied his tactics, how to inspire fear, how to eliminate rivals, and how to hold power through loyalty and terror. Matteo Messina Denaro became the new ghost of Cosa Nostra. Police claimed he ordered dozens of murders in the 1990s, including bombings that killed judges, police, and innocent civilians. Yet for years, he slipped through every net, living in safe houses, protected by a network of loyalists. In Sicily, whispers about him grew into myths. Some said he'd fled abroad, others that he walked the streets disguised as an ordinary man. But one thing was certain: the hunt for Messina Denaro had become the state's top priority, just as it once was for Riina. For nearly 3 decades, the hunt for Matteo Messina Denaro consumed Italy's anti-mafia forces. Raids hit his family, friends, and business fronts. Millions of euros in assets were seized: villas, land, companies, all linked to his hidden empire. Yet the man himself remained a phantom. Investigators used every trick: wiretaps, undercover agents, and even satellite tracking. But Messina Denaro stayed one step ahead. His network of loyalists moved him from one safe house to another, feeding him information about police operations before they happen. Finally, in January 2023, the net closed. Acting on fresh intelligence, Carabinieri surrounded a private clinic in Palermo where Denaro was receiving cancer treatment under a false name. After 30 years on the run, Italy's most wanted man was in custody. His arrest sent shockwaves through Sicily. It marked the symbolic end of the Corleonesi era. The last major figure connected to Riina's bloody legacy had fallen. Today, Cosa Nostra is a shadow of the empire it once was under Riina and the Corleonesi. The wars are over, the streets quieter, but the organization still breathes, adapting to survive. Instead of open violence, the new generation focuses on infiltration, politics, legitimate businesses, and international investments. Construction projects, waste management contracts, even renewable energy, all can be controlled quietly, with no need for blood in the streets. But in the towns of Sicily, the old codes remain. Shopkeepers still pay pizzo, the mafia tax, out of fear. Locals still lower their voices when certain names are mentioned. And in Corleone itself, the history of Riina's reign lingers like an unspoken warning. Power gained through fear will always end in blood. Law enforcement in Sicily has learned from the battles against Riina and Messina Denaro. Anti-mafia units now move faster, coordinate across regions, and follow the money as much as the gunmen. The days when a single boss could control the entire island are gone, but the mafia's influence has not disappeared. Smaller, fragmented clans now control their own territories, sometimes cooperating, sometimes clashing. These groups still protect their rackets: extortion, drug trafficking, loan sharking. But they avoid the kind of large-scale wars that once brought massive police crackdowns. Yet every so often, investigators uncover plots for assassinations, shipments of drugs from South America, or secret meetings of clan leaders in remote countryside villas. Each discovery is a reminder that while the mafia may be quieter, it is never truly gone. In recent years, surveillance has caught glimpses of a new kind of leadership. Younger men in their 30s and 40s, raised on stories of Riina, but schooled in modern crime. They drive luxury cars, wear designer suits, and invest in cryptocurrency alongside old rackets like extortion and smuggling. These new bosses know the history. They've studied how Riina's open brutality brought the full force of the state down on Cosa Nostra. So they prefer subtlety, moving money through shell companies, buying influence quietly, and avoiding headlines at all costs. But beneath the polished surface, the same code remains. Loyalty is rewarded, betrayal is punished, and control is everything. Whether it's the backstreets of Corleone or the boardrooms of Palermo, the shadow of Riina still shapes the way the mafia thinks and kills. One recent case shook Palermo in 2019 when police uncovered a meeting between several mid-level bosses in a hidden room behind a butcher shop. Inside, investigators found ledgers detailing extortion payments, coded notes about drug shipments, and a seating plan, a quiet attempt to rebuild a central mafia commission. The operation, called Cupola 2.0, led to dozens of arrests. Among them was Settimo Mineo, an 80-year-old jeweler long suspected of being a senior figure in Cosa Nostra. Authorities called him the successor to the old bosses, a bridge between Riina's brutal reign and the new, quieter generation. But the arrests also showed how fragile modern Cosa Nostra is. Without Riina's iron grip or Messina Denaro's ghostly leadership, the mafia today is more vulnerable to infiltration, betrayal, and constant police pressure. Still, the arrests proved one thing: the organization's hunger for control has never gone away. In 2021, Italian authorities launched Operation Morsa, targeting mafia infiltration in Sicily's lucrative renewable energy sector. Investigators revealed that wind farm contracts worth millions had been quietly steered to companies linked to Cosa Nostra figures. Bribes, threats, and silent partnerships ensured the money flowed back into clan coffers. Unlike the bloody power struggles of Riina's era, this was a war fought on paper. Fake invoices, hidden shareholders, offshore accounts. But the stakes were just as high, with the mafia using clean industries to launder dirty money. Dozens were arrested, including businessmen in tailored suits and local politicians who had promised voters a new Sicily. Behind closed doors, the same old rules applied: pay the mafia or the deal dies. Even now, the story of Cosa Nostra is still being written. Riina's reign may be over, Messina Denaro may be behind bars, but the mafia adapts like a shadow, shifting, waiting, looking for the next opportunity. For Sicily, the scars remain. Every quiet street, every old villa, every whispered name carries echoes of the past. And for law enforcement, the fight is never truly over. What Riina built through fear still casts a long shadow. And the question isn't whether the mafia will rise again, but who will lead it when it does. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe and join the Mob Truth family. New soldiers are always welcome. We've got more untold stories of power, betrayal, and blood on the streets of Sicily and beyond. Stick around, because the next chapter is one you don't want to miss.